Welcome to C2 Biz Growth Iron Sharpens Iron podcast, where CEOs and entrepreneurs share how they are overcoming business growth and sustainability challenges.
Welcome. I'm your host, John Hale III, and we are here with our guest today, Mr. Austin Okere. We're honored that you're joining us today. Thank you for being with us today, Austin.
My pleasure.
Yes, thank you. He is the co-founder and CEO of the Nigerian-based Computer Warehouse Group, otherwise known as CWG, a computer hardware, software, and network solutions firm. CWG is a trusted and valued partner of global IT firms such as Dell, Sun Microsystems, Cisco, SAP, partner, and more. The firm services primarily the telecommunications, oil, and banking sectors. And his partners started CWG with $35,000 in 1992 and secured a $90 million valuation IPO roughly 10 years later. In 2015, CWG was recognized as a global growth company by the World Economic Forum and is the largest security traded in the technology sector of the NGX, which is the Nigerian Stock Exchange, and it was listed in 2013. Austin is also the founder of the Ausso Leadership Academy, which mentors business leaders to scale and grow their businesses for shared prosperity. In his spare time, Austin is an entrepreneur in residence at Columbia Business School in New York City. So you can see he's a quite accomplished guest. We're excited that he is joining us today on C2 Biz Growth. Again, Austin, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. My pleasure to be here.
Yes, we're so excited to have you here. And so we're going to start off just asking how you're showing up today, meaning you're a successful CEO and founder of a global company. Can you please share with us what experiences from your childhood, family, or the early part of your business career most impact who we see today?
Thank you very much, John. Well, I think that taking a trip back to memory lane is always a nostalgia event. Just a bit about my childhood. I was born in Ghana to a Nigerian father and a Ghanaian mother. Raised in Ghana, went to St. Augustine's College for my high school in Cape Coast, which is like the education center of Ghana. And then I went to the University of Ghana for 1 year. And in that year, 1982, we had a military revolution in Ghana. Jerry Rawlings staged a coup, and the students, of which I was part, went on protests. And the schools were shut down. And we thought that it was, as with other shutdowns, going to reopen within a week or 2 weeks or maybe a month. But it went for 3 months and the schools were not opened. So my dad suggested that I transfer to the University of Lagos in Nigeria. And I'm glad that I did, because with the benefit of hindsight, my classmates did stay at home for a year and had to do intermediary work on farms for the year before the schools were opened. I went to university at the University of Lagos in Nigeria. And after I started CWG, 10 years after I started, I went to the Lagos Business School, where I was prepared for the degree certificates, the MBA from ESA Business School in Spain. So the preparation was done at the Lagos Business School, and we sat the exam to get the MBA from ESA, which was a partner of Lagos Business School. So education-wise, that's the path that I've followed. Okay. In terms of work, I immediately started with a computer company when I graduated from the University of Lagos. I worked for 4.5 years and then went to start Computer Warehouse Group because I thought that I could do better with customer service and with generally running the business. Mm-hmm. it's easier said than done. When you go out to start on your own, all those assumptions, they will fall when the rubber meets the road. You realize, John, that the customers that were loyal to you were loyal to your company and to you, but now you're no longer with the company, so they are no longer your customers. Your suppliers are no longer your suppliers. You have to chart a new trail. And so that was the first shock. And that was like, I see your logo, iron sharpens iron. So that iron did sharpen some iron in me, made quite a success with CWG. To the extent that Columbia Business School wrote a case study on CWG. The case centered around one of the PE companies that wanted to invest in a company. And the question was, should Austin take the investment or not? I'll come to that later. And along the way, I got into the EY Entrepreneur of the Year awards. Was in the national finals. And then I got invited to the World Economic Forum to be on the Global Agenda Council for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. And I got invited to the Global Business School Network, which showcases the impact of MBAs on projects that they're doing in their society. And into what we call the Association for the Advancement of Collegiate Business Schools, AACSB, on the Business Practices Council. So in a nutshell, that's the summary of my journey. And what I am doing now at the Ausso Leadership Academy, as you said, is mentoring business leaders and entrepreneurs to grow their businesses geometrically. If they scale their businesses, they employ more people, and then we have shared prosperity. Shared prosperity is my thing now. That's my cultural legacy.
Okay. Wow. Thank you for sharing that journey with us. And when you started CWG, can you give us a sense of the corporate structure and just the evolution of the company? Because I believe there's one or two subsidiaries to the company, if not three. Just how you guys are organized today.
All right. So it didn't start on that note. It started as CWL, which is Computer Warehouse Limited. It became CWG precisely because of what you said. We were primarily partners to Dell, and we were focused only on Dell. So we weren't a multi-hardware vendor. And so Dell also told all their customers that this is Dell in Nigeria. So CWG was Dell in Nigeria. We did the hardware business very well, to the extent that the customers were asking us if we could also do their networking business, their local area networks. And so we set up a subsidiary called DCC, mainly a digital communications company. And DCC was focused on providing connectivity for those hardware that we put in. And customers were asking us then, listen, guys, you've done so well with your hardware and the software and the communications. Can you also do software for us? So we set up a software company called Expert Edge Software. And so we had what we call the Total Solutions Company. When a company comes to us for solutions, they are confident that it will be a single responsibility contractor handling the hardware, handling the software, and handling the communications. And they know that we bring the same level of professionalism to all three of the subsidiaries. That's how the corporate structure came to be 3 subsidiaries in one company. To make it more efficient, all the other services were shared services. So the human resources services were shared, financial services were shared, procurement was shared, executive time was shared. What was distinctive between the 3 subsidiaries was the path to sales and the path to delivering the services that they've sold and the products. Otherwise, for all intents and purposes, it was a group, and with this a CEO, which was myself of the group, but we also had managing directors for the subsidiaries, Philip Obia for the communication subsidiary, and James Agada for the software subsidiary.
Gotcha. Yes, and when you started the company, what was the vision in Nigeria and West Africa? What was the market that you saw that was not being satisfied?
So, John, I think more than the market that was not being satisfied, it was how the market was being served. In emerging markets where the rule of law is evolving, you are not sure that you are going to get justice, and business is not about machines that are talking to each other. Business is about relationships, and relationships, if there is no strong rule of law, is built on trust. There were so many failed projects, a few ones that were successful, but the companies that were the customers have begun to distrust the technology companies that were delivering these projects because projects were delayed and many were not successful. The trust that the customers bestowed upon us to ask us to do not just the hardware, but the software and communications is the same trust they bestowed upon us to do the project delivery and project management. So I think the major differentiation for CWG and why we were so successful relatively in the market was because the customers could trust us. What we said was what we did. And when we delivered to time, to quality, and to budget. If we made a mistake, we are the first to come up to say, here is where we've dropped the ball. And this and this and this is what we're going to do to rectify it within this time frame. And this is what we're going to put down as a sweetener for that mistake which we have made. And we'll never make that mistake again. We'll always learn from our mistakes, makes us better. So I think that if you come to emerging markets like Africa, the opportunities are immense, but customers are looking for who they can trust to say what they will do and do what they will say. And when the ball is dropped, to say, we dropped the ball, and to give a path to recovery. And then it becomes a relationship rather than a transaction. It becomes a partnership rather than a supplier and a buyer.
Right. You are just so correct there about building trust and building relationship with your end customers. So as part of your growth strategy in Nigeria, can you give us a sense of context, maybe since you started in 1992, can you speak to the foreign direct investment into Nigeria and then just the impact and the implications of the currency fluctuation between the Naira and US dollar and how that may complicate things for you? Just still as you're growing your business.
So let me put it this way, just to paint a picture, then I will explain the headwinds. Take our company, CWG, which was started with $35,000. We listed a week before Twitter on November 15th, 2013, at $90 million. This is a 2,500 times growth, which means, John, if you are putting $1,000 as seed capital, on the day of investment, that your $1,000 will be worth $2.5 million. That was
Austin,
phenomenal.
you should have called me, Austin.
I looked for you, John. I think you're trying to play baseball.
I didn't make it to Lagos back in 1992. Too bad. I missed out.
So that was fantastic. Now, in 2013, The exchange rate of the Naira to the US dollar was 54.8. 54.8. All right. So now come fast forward to 2025. The exchange rate is 1,485 to the US dollar from 54.8 in 2013. So in Naira terms, we've grown the value of the company 9 times, from 5.4 billion Naira to 47.72 billion Naira, 9 times. But if you look at it in dollar terms, the value of the company today is around a third of what we got on the day of listing at the valuation of 90, which is a huge headwind. Because when you look at business, you look at risk, you look at uncertainty, you look at constraints. Constraints are things you cannot do anything about. There is nothing that CWG or any other company can do about the exchange rate to the dollar. Nor can CWG do anything about the interest rate or inflation. So CWG is running very fast and is making a lot of progress, but it seems that it's standing still. It's like the duck paddling very furiously under the water, even though it remains calm. So if you don't talk about the dollar at all, then CWG has done fantastically well to take the valuation, which was a record, to 9 times what it was in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at that growth in dollar terms, then you begin to ask yourself, what did happen? Why was it 90 at listing, and why is it a third of the value today? And that is precisely why a lot of companies that come into emerging markets to invest, foreign direct investment, they are very peculiar, or they are very particular about the exchange depreciation risk.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of coming in and investing deeply in the fundamentals, they come in what we call portfolio investors. So they invest in a portfolio, and once the exchange rate starts moving against them, they just shut their portfolio and then they dash out, and they go and wait for the market to stabilize. Then they come in again, which is not good for the country, but which you cannot blame them for, because they also do not want to see the value of their investment depreciating for no fault of theirs, just because of macroeconomic factors.
Right.
But that said, if you look at the growth trajectory, all the companies which suffered exactly what we suffered, which is exchange loss, they've started growing exponentially again, which is a good news. But the other side of the news is that over the decades, we've seen this as cyclical. Exchange rate is stable for 7 years, then there's a sharp drop, then it's stable for 7 years, then there's a sharp drop. And so it's difficult to plan around that. What we then did to mitigate is to open other businesses outside a single zone. So not just only in Nigeria, where we started, we opened in Ghana, to de-risk from country risk. We opened in Cameroon for the East Africa market. We opened in Uganda for Cameroon for Central Africa, and then Uganda for East Africa. And then we opened in the UAE to coordinate our international business. And the whole idea is de-risk as much as possible from a single country, from a single sector, from a single customer, or from a single technology.
Thank you for sharing that. Just a fabulous story and way that you brought that together. And also, can you share with us the industries that you're primarily focused on? Banking, oil, and telecommunications. What was about those 3 industries that attracted you guys there?
What attracted us to the industries that we have chosen to focus on are two reasons. The first reason is that those industries, banking, telecoms, and oil and gas, tend to have a very mature computer culture. So they are not about transactions. They are about partnership. They are about long-term planning of the IT strategy. They are about value rather than just cheapest cost. So that's the first thing. They have a very mature computer culture. Secondly, there's been tremendous evolution in those industries. Let's start with, say, the banking. Nigeria had almost about 86 banks up to 2004, but these were not very big banks. Many of them were quite small. There were some regional banks and there were some international banks, but the majority were very small. And once a bank fails, it can trigger a domino effect. So the Central Bank of Nigeria decided to strengthen the banking industry by raising the capital from 2 billion to 25 billion naira for the license. And those 85 banks collapsed into 25 banks. These 25 banks, therefore, were looking for global standard software because now they are major banks. They can't just rely on the software they coupled together.
Right. Yeah.
At that time, we had signed with a software company called Infosys for a banking application called Finacle. And that was a boom for us because Finacle was extremely successful. In our first year with Infosys on Finacle, we signed with 3 banks simultaneously in that year: Comet Bank, Standard Trust Bank, and Oceanic Bank. In fact, Infosys was so overwhelmed about doing 3 implementations at the same time in Nigeria that they scaled us up very quickly to very high standards so that we could do those implementations. And we also saw that as a way of a win-win. So whenever we sign a bank on Finacle, we scale their technology people to a very deep extent on the software so that they can do a lot of things for themselves. So they can keep the customizations that they do on the software for themselves. We keep the customizations we do on the software for the country because other banks will use the same customization. And Infosys keeps the version updates for globally. And that partnership worked. So the success of that means that of the 27 banks in Nigeria today, 23 of them are running on Finacle, which is the software we brought in.
Yes.
So that is the software side.
Mm-hmm.
If we look at the communication side, there are 2 aspects of communication. There is what we call the local area network, and there's what we call the wide area network. The difference being the local area networks is when you connect the computers within the building or within the campus together so that they can communicate effectively. Wide area network is when you connect branches of a bank far and wide up country to the headquarters. So local area network is within the locality, whilst wide area network is across the country or even internationally. And what had happened that was a headwind for us, what was a tailwind for us, was that we put down the capital to set up what we call a network operating center, which is like a broadcasting station. And we carried the customers' traffic through our network operating center. We don't see the data, but they don't have the trouble and cost of building their own mini network operating centers. Our competitors, on the other hand, were selling network operating centers to banks in order to carry their traffic, which is like setting up a broadcasting station because you want to share content. And so of the 25 banks then, 23 of them were running on our wide area network. We were actually making about $4 million profit per annum from that telecommunications business. So if you come to the software, we were very successful based on the industry consolidation and our quick response. If you came to the communications, we put the infrastructure down for the customers to ride on our infrastructure. Now, if you come to telecoms, before year 2000, there were only 400,000 landlines for 200 million people in Nigeria. Now, if you do the math, you see that it's really a drop in the ocean if you compared it to the requirement. I mean, people in America probably had 2 phones per household, one in the office and one at home. And the whole country had 400,000 telephone lines. So the government now launched what we call the GSM bid. At that time, the GSM phones were just coming in. And the gentleman who handled the operation for Nigeria, Dr. Ernest Ndukwe, did a fantastic job of the auction. It was probably the most successful and transparent auction in Africa. So all of a sudden, we've gone from 400,000 lines to 25 million lines in people's pockets on their smartphones, to 50 million lines, to 100 million lines. And what did this need? It needed infrastructure to roll this out. And we went in very quickly to partner with the dominant company in Nigeria called MTN from South Africa. Their roots were in South Africa, to provide the technology and the hardware for the rollout of the plethora of GSM mobile phones. And we're making with MTN about $35 million per annum, but not just selling them kits. Through our global partners who had done this elsewhere, we were sitting on the internal IT strategy meetings, providing direction of how to be efficient and effective. So that also brought a differentiation to our offering. So come to telecoms, 6 out of 10, 65% of calls go through MTN, and that's through our partnership with them in our infrastructure. Come to banking, 67% of bank transactions are done through Finacle, and that's through our software. And that's how impactful, we have been. So at the end of the day, if you ask me what exactly has CWG provided, I think that's the impact. The impact is that at least 67% in banking and in telecoms, for every call that completes or for every bank transaction that is completed, passes through our infrastructure.
Thank you for sharing that. That is a powerful story just about collaboration, partnership, and how that service has transitioned to additional services, but then building the trust in those relationships across all your sectors, across your entire platform.
That is correct. Correct.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. You had mentioned earlier about the Columbia Business School case study. Could you speak to that? And oftentimes we talk to entrepreneurs, and there's questions, kind of a fork in the road about how should they capitalize their company? Should it be bootstrapping, internal cash flow? And when they need additional liquidity, what should they look for from like a private equity partner or from a VC, et cetera? So could you speak to that, kind of that case study, and then your decision and the pros and cons of just the private equity relationship that you guys established?
John, let me unpack that question and go stage by stage. Let me start by how I got into Colombia. So Colombia was taking in a lot of African students, but there were not enough African case studies. I mean, you had case studies of Coca-Cola, DHL, and the rest. So they were looking for African case studies, but they were very careful to be sure that the company they selected to write a case study on will be a company that could hold its own, be ethical, nothing untoward will be found, because that would be quite an embarrassment.
Yes.
So when I went for the Entrepreneur in Residence competition, the EY Entrepreneur in Residence competition, I popped up and they sent someone from the Lagos Business School to contact me about writing a case study about a company. But before then, they had conditions. And the condition is that they will send about a dozen people to embed in our company for 3 weeks, to visit our customers unaccompanied, to speak to regulators, to speak to our suppliers, to speak to our competitors. They embedded with our customers, the people that came from Columbia Business School. They interviewed unaccompanied the customers, they interviewed the regulators, our competitors, and they were satisfied that this was a company we could write a case study on. I'm aware that they chose 2 other companies, one in Ghana and one in Kenya, and therefore they wrote the case study on private equity investments. That was the thrust of the case. And they wrote this case study when we had a private equity look in and wanted to invest $8 million in our company for 25%, bringing the valuation post to $32 million. And the case ended on a question: should Austin accept this offer from the PE company or should he not? And each time I go to class in New York to debrief this case, it's evenly split. Half of the class says he should take it, and half of the class says Austin, walk away. The long and short is that we did not take that money. This was somewhere in 2005. And it's not just for the money that we're going to get. Number one, the valuation has to appeal to us. Number two, there has to be something that the PE company is bringing beyond the money. Are they going to open doors for us? Do they have the expertise to take us global, in our next level that we wanted to be? What were they bringing to the table that we didn't have beyond the money? And we didn't see sufficient of that. So we didn't take the money. Now, come 2007, we were ready to now take investment because we had reached a point of inflection where we needed to grow very fast. We had covered our costs in what we were experimenting, which was what we call CWG 2.0, developing our own IP, putting down more investment in telecoms. So we've proven the concept. We're making profit in those areas, but we needed to scale and beyond what we could do with internally generated cash flow. John, you will not believe it. Just as we started to prepare to go to the market, came the global meltdown, which started in the bubble from America, subprimes. And the whole world went into a tailspin. When we were now finally ready to take PE money or list on the stock exchange, either one of the two, in 2007, we now had what was the subprime loan problem that triggered the global meltdown onto 2008. And all the banks overseas recalled their monies back home because they needed it back home. And that impacted us, So one thing is that we learned: you do something, not when you want to, when you can do it. Because when you want to, it may not longer be possible to do it. But anyway, here we were, and we then decided we're going to go straight to the IPO and then list our companies on the stock exchange. But you have to have 30% subscription of your IPO before the exchange can admit you to list your shares. And that was proving very tough, because we started going from individuals to anybody who wanted to invest in the IPO. And it was almost going to get to a point where we call it off because everybody was holding their money tight to their chest. Nobody knew what was going to happen with this subprime loan, the subprime problem that had resulted from America. And then, John, a company called Ausso reached out to me. And that company said, Austin, we have been following your progress in CWG for 3 years. There's not much you can tell us about your company. We'll bring in the investment you need, call off everything, return everybody's money. And we're going to give you $10 million for 17% of your company, which was much, much better than $8 million for 10%. And I said, I will do all that, but what I cannot do is to return the people's money. Because these people showed faith with me, even when times were rough. They gave me the money. And even if I'm going to be at advantage, to return them the money will be like a stab in the back. If that is the condition, then I'm afraid I can't take that money. Grow organically. I think that was when the country manager of Ausso felt this is someone we can trust. This is someone who is ethical. So it reinforced his commitment, and he invested that $10 million for 17%. We got a check in 2009, September. So we didn't need to do anything. Here we had the money that we needed. Many companies which did not raise money to tidy up during that period didn't make it. And here we were. We had scaled that big hurdle. We had attracted $10 million when nobody was making any investments.
Right.
And that's one thing that I believe that young founders should learn, that leadership is about influence. Influence is built on relationships, but relationships are built on trust. And trust is the currency of your brand. I didn't know that these people were looking at me and our company from afar, but they liked what they saw. So whatever you do in the night, be sure that you won't be ashamed of it during the day. It's what we learned.
Yeah.
And so we were very successful with that. One thing I would like to tell entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, I see a lot of people set up a company, rush to the door, raise Series A, raise Series B, and each time they raise, they go to LinkedIn and celebrate, probably thinking that this is a grant. It's not a grant. Most expensive form of investment. It's the most expensive because the PE company that is bringing the money is expecting 3 times the amount they brought in 5 years. Now, if you took dollars from the PE company, you are still going to return them dollars, even though you are earning in naira. Right. And remember what I told you at the beginning, that the exchange rate depreciates significantly, in the period that you took the money. So you took 100 million, for instance, at an exchange rate of 100 to 1, you are still going to return 3 times that money 5 years later, even if the exchange rate is 5,000 to 1. And it becomes an almost impossible starts to do. The only way that you will be able to return that money is if you scale exponentially, so that even if there is an exchange loss, you can still make that money to pay back. The other way in which you can avoid paying 3 times of the money is to create a liquidity event, such as a listing on the stock exchange or another company coming to buy the one that invested out. So they brought their money in 2009 at a valuation of 55 Oreos, and we listed at $90 million in 2013. It was a win-win for everybody. It was even more of a win for those of us who brought in the seed investment of $35,000 because that now became 2,500 times. And my advice is to young founders, do not rush out to sell your seed. Nurture your seed into fruits and sell out of your fruits. Because each time you raise, you are diluted significantly. And if you continue to raise, you'll be a glorified management staff in the company you founded, which is not interesting.
Right. And then at that point, Austin, you'll be working for somebody else as well.
But you'll be under the illusion that you are the owner of or a founder of a company. It's an illusion.
Right.
And those kinds of company, once they are not able to raise any more funds, then they shut down. Because the PE company is on you, growth at all costs. So people are burning money and they are showing growth. But the moment you stop the buying of customers, it's not sustainable because it's not profitable. But when you list on the exchange, the market disciplines you. Quarterly numbers. It's like really walking naked in the marketplace. And that was what good for CWG.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for sharing that fascinating journey, particularly about how the reinforcement of the private equity and then with the IPO as well, and how you've mitigated the exchange risk, customer risk, political risk by going out to different countries, by establishing your brand and your product through multiple different countries. So thank you for giving us that sense of your strategy. You had mentioned earlier that you founded the Leadership Academy, just to pivot a little bit. So between that and the relationship with Columbia Business School, it seems that you really prioritize that next generation of students, entrepreneurs, emerging leaders. Why is that important to you?
John, the reason why I went out to set up the Ausso Leadership Academy was because I felt that was a logical next step for me. I see the life of a young man in 2 phases. In the first phase, he's seeking commercial success. He's working to get something to secure his future. But when you have achieved commercial success, it's pointless accumulating more and more and more and more. The second phase is how to give back in an impactful manner. Giving back is not standing at this corner square and then distributing $100 bills to people. That's not a sustainable form of giving back. Giving back is teaching people to fish rather than giving them fish. When I was in CWG, there came a time after we transitioned away from military rule into democratic government that the companies which were working with us as resellers, so we were distributors and resellers because they were not keen to come into the country directly. But once there was stability and democratic government, they rushed in to set up directly, which took some time for equilibrium to be established. They needed staff, so they went to the best places where they could get the best staff. And guess what? CWG was the first point of call. And they tripled salaries because they're coming in with US dollars. We couldn't match that. So I set up what we call the CWG Academy. And the CWG Academy was to take rookies in and in 3 months, make them into black belt technology people. And that's what saved our company. In fact, that also helped the industry, because those people that you train, young people, they already have intuition about technology. So it's not difficult to get them to scale in the knowledge. They came in as CWG staff and we put them on projects and they were fantastic, just like our own staff. The customers also took some of them, and even our competitors took some of them. So we uplifted the skills in the market. So I knew that it's possible to impact in that manner. I believe that a founder can be likened to an apple tree, for instance, John. So
Yes.
the apple tree bears fruits. The fruits grow from small to big, and then they ripen, and then they're beautiful, and then you need to pluck those fruits. If you don't pluck them, they will rot on the tree. And I believe that the founder can overstay his stay in the company and begin to, in quotes, rot on the tree. And the reason why founders, I had done 25 years in the company, I felt that the company needed fresh ideas and new energy. And I could get a succession going where I could then impact the new person in that direction. But it was because I had what I was going to do, which was my cultural legacy, which was the Ausso Leadership Academy, which was my giving back. And the whole idea of the giving back was a sustainable mechanism. So it's not free, the Ausso Leadership Academy, where people will pay to come in and get the knowledge and the framework to scale their businesses, avoid the pitfalls. And because I'd done it at CWG in technology, it wasn't difficult to do it in leadership and entrepreneurship. The framework was the same. One is technology and one is business. But because of the time that I spent at Columbia, I also got a view of how the rounded entrepreneur should look like. I was co-teaching a course called Foundations of Entrepreneurship with Professor Morilo, and I used to have open hours for the companies that wanted to come into Africa, especially Nigeria, providing network, providing advice. So I had a lot of what to bring to the table to give to these business leaders and entrepreneurs. And I believe that if a founder has not figured out what he wants to do by way of cultural legacy or give back, then he's trapped in the company because that's the only source of relevance. And he feels scared that if he leaves, then he'll lose his relevance. And in the end, you become what I call the law of the late. We have to respect the history, but we can't get stuck in the past. So we respect the past, but we have to challenge the present in order to create the future, in order to augment possibilities and create new realities. And those founders that know when to say, let's get someone else in the saddle and let's support him to grow the company to the next level, those are the ones whose company outlived them. Otherwise, then when you bow out, the company also bows out. And that's why I went to start the Ausso Leadership Academy, essentially to pursue my cultural legacy, to give back in a sustainable manner, and to be sure that there is impact, not just a matter of accumulating wealth and dying as the richest man in the cemetery.
Right. Right. No, thank you for sharing that. Particularly, you think about acting or sports or entertainment, when you go see a concert or see a sports figure that has stayed beyond his or her time. It's just too long. They're behind their prime and they just need to exit the stage. So all of us in business, we have a prime, we have a season. And I love the analogy you use. We don't want to be that rotten fruit off the tree. You pick the fruit at the harvest when it's its ripest. We don't want to stay too long.
With your permission, John, I would like to share a thought.
Yes.
And that thought is about the term billionaire. We've come to associate a billionaire with someone who has $1 billion in liquidity and assets. And this this is even emphasized more by Forbes magazine, maintaining a list of who is the
Yes.
top of the list of billionaires. And I believe that we probably should look at a billionaire in a different perspective. We should look at a billionaire as someone who has positively, directly or indirectly impacted 1 billion people. So if you talk about Mother Teresa, she doesn't have $1 billion,
Right.
but has done so. If you talk about
Yes.
Mahatma Gandhi, Nelson Mandela,
Right.
even if you talk about Martin Luther King Jr., I Have a Dream, it's impacted so many people. If we measure a billionaire in terms of impact to humanity, you see the change in humanity. But the way we are measuring it now, everybody is going to genuflect at the feet of someone who has accumulated billions and billions and billions and not necessarily impacting many people. And I don't think it's useful the way we are recognizing or the parameters for recognizing a billionaire. I'm proposing that we change it to impact to humanity than accumulation of $1 billion.
So thank you for sharing that vision and really that I guess you would make it a mandate and a call to action, Austin, in terms of shared prosperity and the cultural legacy versus our financial legacy, our business legacy, which can be an inspiring story, which we can accumulate wealth. And yes, maybe we positively satisfy our customers, but beyond that, we have a limited impact on just everyday people, on being able to actually kind of be like a rising tide that will lift other boats, so to speak.
Well put.
So
A
thank you for
rising
sharing.
tide that will lift other boats. So
Yes.
when you get to the top, send the elevator down to pick other people's. Don't take away the ladder.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, the idea of a mentor and a sponsor should be someone who just doesn't open the door and closes behind them, but opens the door and keeps it open and welcomes other people through it as well. Thank you for sharing that. How much that you have accomplished, what's next for you personally? Is it focusing on your cultural legacy, or are there other things that are how are you spending your time now?
So I'm doing a lot more in the line of the cultural legacy, not just at the Ausso Leadership Academy. I mean, the Ausso Leadership Academy is doing marvelous work. We started in Nigeria, and the whole idea was to focus on young entrepreneurs because established companies had the budget to go for McKinsey or Accenture, but the younger ones didn't have that. And we were providing an alternative path that was within their budgets. Then came COVID. We started it in 2018. That's when I set it up. That's the logo behind me, the Ausso Leadership Academy. The logo in front of me is CWG Plc. So I'm wearing two hats. You asked me how I'm showing up today. I'm showing up as one person representing two brands.
But yes.
So
No, thank you.
So you have the Ausso Leadership Academy in the COVID period that was facing two choices, innovate or die, because we had social distancing. So we couldn't go to the academy and bring in people. And what we did was to put the curriculum online. And then we had the technology companies came up very strongly during COVID with Zoom, with Teams, with Riverbed.
Right.
And so we use Zoom quite a lot. And we're able to impact companies even outside Nigeria. So there's a company that makes a whiskey called Glenfiddich in Scotland, William Grant and Sons, which we did work for. There's a company in Kenya, Old Mutual Assurance, which is an insurance business, which we did work for. And there's a company called Achilles, which is a German company, 200 years old, started in Kenya in 1960, which we were able to do work for. So we were able to reach out more globally. And when COVID was over, we then went to those places to continue the impact. So that's a fulfillment for me. Beyond the Ausso Leadership Academy, I also work with institutions. For instance, MIT also wrote a case study on CWG and did a video case study sponsored by the MasterCard Foundation. which is used to teach predominantly the growing African population in MBAs in America.
Right.
What I do with the Global Business School Network on the advisory board is how to bring town and gown together. In other words, academics shouldn't just be happy to publish and publish and publish and get tenure. Who is using the knowledge that I've published and what have they used it to create? Let's measure that. Let's measure the impact.
Mm-hmm.
We clap for you for the research and the findings and the publications. But beyond that, what is the impact? Who is using it? Can you stretch it to that level? Also looking at working with the AACSB, they are more into accreditation, especially as AI is becoming a thing. How can we be sure that the learning is still pure? Lecturers are worried that when they set assignments, students just use ChatGPT and then they turn their results in and all 40 results are the same. Of course, because ChatGPT did it. But then we also started seeing that the lecturers were getting frustrated. So they also use ChatGPT to mark the scripts. Well, yes.
Yes.
I mean, if you are going to use ChatGPT to answer my questions, why should I spend time to mark it? I'll just put it through ChatGPT to do the marking. So we're trying to then bring the feeling, the soul of education back. Do the work, and then you can use ChatGPT to improve it, or to add to it. But do not substitute your brain with ChatGPT. You do a brilliant presentation on PowerPoint. You go to present it. The first question you are flawed because you don't know anything about it. ChatGPT did it, and that's the danger. The difficult part of that is that if you look at the trend now, people are worried about sharing anything they see on the internet because they don't know whether it's fake news, whether it's deep fake, or whether it's real. So right now, nobody knows what is true and what is not. ChatGPT 3.0 had hallucinations 33% of the time. ChatGPT 4.0, according to Sky News, did a research, and the hallucination is 48%. It's only 52% of information on the internet that is genuine. Now, I ask you, John, if there was a flight, a plane, which would go on from New York to Los Angeles, and it would deliver you in 2 hours, but 48% of the time, you don't know whether you reach your destination. It will deliver you in 2 hours, but 48% of the time, you're not sure. Will you go on that plane?
Right. Of course not.
Of course not.
Yep.
But there we are. We've unleashed ChatGPT onto scale, no guardrails, no governance, and unfortunately, I think the genie is out of the box, of the bottle.
Yes.
So we have to be very careful that we use ChatGPT not as a substitute for our brains, but to augment our brains.
Right. Yes. It's a tool, not a replacement.
It's a tool, not a replacement.
Yes. So thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. Well, Austin, I really want to thank you for spending time with us today. What I find amazing is from $35,000 to a $90 million valuation, that huge return that you have and the fact that you're doing with it, you guys own your own IP, your own patents, your own fintech. I believe you shared with me that you daily service roughly 250 million transactions. Did I read that right?
That is correct. If you put banking, telecoms, and everything together, that's what we do. Before you round up, I'd like to share one last thing with you.
No, yeah, go ahead. Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yes.
And John,
of course.
What I'd like to share with you is my parting gift. I call it the 3 W's that sustain me. And I'll explain what they are. I call them the 3 powers. The first W is what I call way power. Way power is about aptitude. You are fantastic at what you do, John. because you research, you have Hassan that helps you to make sure that the quality of what you produce is better. And you don't stop there. You keep researching in terms of the material, the questions you ask, and the technical outputs. That's way power, being the best at what you do. The second W is willpower. That speaks to your attitude. It's said, I think I heard it from Denzel Washington first, if you fall down 7 times, stand up 8. Where everybody says, Austin, give up, try one more time. Maybe the light is at the end of the tunnel. It's about resolve. It's about going the extra mile.
Yes.
And the third W is weight power. It speaks to patience, to reap the fruit rather than selling the seed. If you sell the seed, you sell it once. But if you sell the fruit, you will always have fruit to sell because you still have your seed to plant. Sometimes you don't have patience to look at what we have planted to germinate and grow into fruit and then sell at the fruit. Way power, willpower, and weight power. These are the 3 things that have sustained me and have differentiated in the way that I think I have looked at life.
Right. Well, Austin, that is powerful. I mean, especially when you think about not giving up, having the grit to power through, and being able to wait. You mentioned AI and Chat GTP. We want to put in a prompt, press a button, and get an answer in 10 seconds. But business and life doesn't work that way. And it doesn't work that way with these relationships you spoke earlier. It takes time to build a trusted relationship. You've got to show up on time with the right answer, within budget several times for people to see that this is who CWG is. This is who Austin is. This wasn't like an aberration. This is who you are.
That's right.
That's amazing. Well, thank you for those W's. I will definitely paraphrase those. I will use those and give you credit, of course.
Feel free to do so.
So, yes, no, I will do that. I'll do that. I remember I was in church one time and the minister said, hey, what did he say? The first time I heard another preacher said something, I mentioned his name. After that, I kind of took it as my own. but in this case, I will definitely give you, Austin, the credit for those 3 W's. That is powerful. That is powerful, my friend. Well, hey, we have enjoyed our time today, and again, it's just an amazing journey from $35,000 to that 2,500 times return, and literally 250 million transactions daily over 28 to 30 countries. When you look at the banks and their subsidiaries and in the countries you're in, is that roughly about accurate?
That is correct.
That's an amazing touch. Yes. Well, hey, congratulations. And we are so glad that you're looking to change what the definition of a billionaire is to uplift other people, because we need more of that. Too many times folks want to take credit for what they're doing. But thank you for sowing the seeds and planting those seeds, that time, into the next generation.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, thank you very much. And we want to thank you for joining us in this episode of C2 Biz Growth Iron Sharpens Iron podcast, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the C2 Biz Growth Iron Sharpens Iron podcast. And check us out on social media, share, and subscribe.